The delivery box sat open on the kitchen counter. White roses spilling out of tissue paper that still smelled like the florist's refrigerator. Elena read the card twice before she understood it. Happy 3 months, baby. Her wedding anniversary was in 4 days. Her name was not Baby. She turned the card over. Someone had scrawled a second note on the back in blue ink, half erased by the delivery driver's thumb. Confirm signing Thursday, and pale. Richard's name wasn't on either side. Elena set the card down exactly where she'd found it, picked up her coffee and said nothing. At the country club luncheon, 3 women asked Elena how Richard's expansion project was going. She smiled and said it was going well, though she'd learned about the expansion from a magazine. You're so patient, one of them said, not quite a compliment. He works hard, Elena said. Under the table, she opened her phone and photographed the blurry image she'd taken of the card that morning. She didn't send it anywhere. She just filed it in a folder labeled Receipts. 10 years earlier, Elena's father had sat her down in his study with a stack of papers she barely read. You're marrying a man who wants to own things, he said. So we're going to own something first. He explained it once, simply. A holding company, funded by the family trust, would quietly take a controlling stake in whatever business Richard eventually built, structured so Richard would never need to know, unless something went wrong. Sign here, her father said. Under Kessler. Not Voss. She'd signed it thinking it was paranoia. Her father died 2 years later. The papers went into a safe deposit box and Elena went on to become, publicly, a woman who'd given up her career for her husband's. She never told Richard. There was never a reason to, until there was. At Richard's office holiday party, his business partner introduced Elena as the woman who makes all this possible, in her own quiet way. Richard laughed too hard at the phrase. Bree, refilling wine glasses nearby, didn't laugh at all. Later, in the coat check line, Elena reached into Richard's jacket pocket for his valet ticket, and found a business card instead. Hale and Kessler Partners Family Law. She didn't recognize the second name on the letterhead as anything but a coincidence. She slid it back into the pocket exactly as she'd found it. Elena sat alone in her car in the office parking garage. Engine off, radio off. She opened the folder on her phone. 3 photos now. The card, the business card, and a screenshot of an email Richard had deleted from the shared cloud account without knowing she still had access. Subject: Q3 distribution, Kessler Family Trust. He'd marked it as spam. She didn't call anyone. She didn't cry. She opened her contacts and found the number for her father's old estate attorney, a man she hadn't spoken to in 6 years, and typed a single text. I think it's time to look at the trust documents again. She sent it, locked her phone, and sat in the quiet a moment longer before starting the car. Richard came home the next week distracted, short with her over nothing, a missing dry cleaning ticket, a rescheduled dinner. He mentioned, almost carelessly, that he'd need her signature on a few refinancing documents for the firm before the end of the month. What documents? Elena asked. Just formalities. You don't need to read the whole thing. I read everything I sign, she said. You know that. He looked at her for a second longer than the conversation required, then changed the subject. Bree called Richard's private line while he was in the shower and Elena, drying dishes nearby, heard the phone buzz twice before he silenced it from the bathroom doorway, towel around his waist, not quite meeting her eyes. Later that night, Elena's own phone rang from a blocked number. A man's voice, clipped and professional. Richard, we need to confirm the filing date before your... The voice stopped. This isn't Richard. No, Elena said. It isn't. My apologies. Wrong contact pulled up. This is Martin Hale, I'm Richard's. I know who you are, Mr. Hale, she said. You left your card in his coat. A pause stretched out on the line. I'll have my assistant reach out to schedule things properly. Please do, Elena said, and hung up before he could say anything else. She set the phone face down on the counter and finished drying the last dish. Richard chose the restaurant, the wine, the seating, everything as always. Halfway through the appetizer, his phone lit up on the table. Bree's name, then a message preview. Can't wait for our real anniversary next month. He grabbed it too fast. Too late. I sent her flowers by mistake, Elena said quietly. The card was for someone named Baby, and underneath it, Mr. Hale's note. About signing Thursday. Richard's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. That's not. You don't understand the context. I understand you're filing for divorce, Elena said, before telling your wife. Elena, I can explain. You already sent the flowers, she said. I think you already did. A waiter approached with dessert menus and retreated without a word. Richard's jaw worked, searching for a sentence that wouldn't make things worse. Elena simply folded her napkin and set it beside her plate, done with the meal, not with the conversation. Bree found the locked drawer in Richard's home office 2 days later, looking for stamps. Inside were folders labeled with dates going back a decade, trust statements, quarterly distributions, an ownership chart with a name at the very top she didn't recognize. Kessler Holdings, LLC, controlling member, E. Kessler. She sat on the floor of the office for a long time before texting Richard a single question. Who is E. Kessler? He didn't answer for 3 hours. Martin Hale's office smelled like fresh coffee and old paper. Richard sat across from him, describing the assets to divide, when Hale's paralegal knocked and handed him a printed ownership disclosure required for the filing. Hale scanned it, then stopped. Kessler Holdings owns 62% of your firm, he said slowly. And Kessler Holdings, he flipped to the second page, also holds founding equity in my firm. That's not possible, Richard said. It's dated 11 years ago. Hale's hand had gone still on the paper, under the name E. Kessler. That's my wife's maiden. Hale didn't let him finish. I've been signing my partnership distributions to her for a decade, and I have never once met her. Elena arrived at Hale's office the next morning, unannounced, and sat in the chair Richard had occupied the day before. She placed a single folder on the desk, her father's original trust documents. Her signature dated a decade earlier, notarized and airtight. You've been filing distribution checks to me for 10 years, Mr. Hale, she said. I never cashed a single one. I let them accumulate. I wanted to see what Richard would do with a business he thought was only his. Hale's throat moved before words came out. The refinancing documents he asked you to sign would have handed him sole authority over an account he doesn't actually control, Elena said. I read everything I sign. Richard, standing in the doorway, hadn't been invited in. Elena, we can fix this quietly. You already tried to fix it quietly, she said, not raising her voice. That's what the flowers were for. She stood, buttoned her coat, and looked at Hale rather than her husband. I'd like my firm's counsel to handle the rest, she said. Not yours. Within a week, Kessler Holdings exercised its controlling stake and removed Richard from day-to-day operations of his own development firm, citing breach of fiduciary conduct tied to the attempted refinancing signature. His partners, informed of the ownership structure for the first time, voted unanimously to support the transition. Hale's firm withdrew from representing Richard entirely, citing an unworkable conflict of interest, and refunded his retainer in full. Bree resigned from her position 2 days later, sending Richard a single text. You told me you controlled everything. You controlled nothing. She didn't answer his calls after that. Richard kept the house for now, and a consulting title with no real authority attached to it. A job title Elena's holding company had quietly created for him. Generous enough to avoid a scandal, hollow enough to make the point. 6 weeks later, Elena sat in a different office, smaller, plainer, with her name on the door for the first time in a decade. E. Kessler, managing partner. Her assistant knocked once. Quarterly distribution report is ready for your signature. I'll read all of it, Elena said, before I sign anything. She meant it as a joke. No one in the room understood why it was funny. That evening, a delivery arrived at Elena's new office, a single bouquet of white roses, no card attached. Her assistant assumed someone had made a mistake and offered to send them back. Leave them, Elena said, setting them on the corner of her desk without ceremony. I like being reminded what mistakes look like. She turned off the desk lamp, locked the office door behind her, and walked out into a parking garage that no longer felt like anyone else's.